All right, we're back for another marketing deep dive. You ready to jump into lesson 6?
Absolutely. Let's get into it.
Last time we dug into product, the first of those 4 P's of marketing. Now we're going to tackle price, the second P. And wow, this one, it really is a game changer. I mean, understanding pricing, how it all works, it can help you make smarter decisions, whether you're buying stuff or, if you're the one actually selling something.
For sure. It's a powerful tool. I think a lot of people think of price as, well, just a number, right? But there's so much more to it than that.
Right, like just changing the price tag can make you think differently about something. See a pair of shoes for 20 bucks? Okay, seems like a pretty good deal, but then you see a similar pair for like $200. Suddenly you're like, whoa, those must be way better, more stylish, more durable, probably even more comfortable.
Exactly. It's amazing how price can create that sense of quality or even like exclusivity. But it's not just about, messing with people's perceptions. Price is really crucial for any business, for its, financial health. It directly impacts how much money they make, their profitability, and companies can even use price strategically to achieve different goals.
Okay, so let's get into some of those strategies. In the research, I saw something called price skimming. What is sounds like? Is that what those big tech companies do when they release a new gadget?
Mhm.
Start the price really high, get those diehard fans to buy it right away, then slowly lower the price to attract more people.
You got it. Skimming is all about like riding that wave of excitement for a new product. Think about when a new gaming console comes out or a new smartphone. People go crazy. They want it right away, even if it costs a lot. So companies can make a lot of money up front, and it helps them cover all those research and development costs.
Makes sense, but doesn't that risk turning some people off? People who might want the product but just can't afford it at that high price?
Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act. Set the price too high, and you might miss out on a big chunk of the market. And yeah, people might get annoyed if they think the price is just too much. The key with skimming is to really understand your market, how much people value the product, and then you have to time those price drops just right so you're maximizing profit, but not losing too many customers.
Got it. Then you have the opposite, penetration pricing, right? That's where you go in low, like really low, to try and get a ton of people to buy your product fast. Kind of like what's happening with all these streaming services now. They have those crazy introductory deals to hook you in.
Yeah, that's a great example. Penetration pricing is all about disrupting the market, kind of shaking things up. It works especially well in industries where it costs a lot to get new customers. So building up a big user base fast is super important. Like, think about how those low-cost streaming services have totally changed how we watch TV and movies.
But don't you lose money doing that at first, especially if your costs are already high. And what happens when you have to raise prices later? Do all those loyal customers you work so hard to get just like jump ship to something cheaper?
Those are the big challenges with penetration pricing for sure. You need a solid plan for how you're going to raise prices eventually without making everyone leave. The key is to build loyalty to your brand, offer a really great experience, give people enough value that they'll want to stick with you, even when those deals are gone.
Right, right. Makes sense. Oh, and we can't forget about loss leader. That's like the classic retail trap, right? You see that printer for super cheap, you can't resist.
Hmm.
But then you realize the ink cartridges cost a fortune.
Ah, yes, the loss leader. It can be a super effective tactic, but it can also feel a bit shady, right? The goal isn't to make money on that first product. It's to get you hooked on the whole system. Like, you need to keep buying those expensive ink cartridges. Another good example is razors and blades. You get a cheap razor, but then you gotta buy those replacement blades forever.
So it's all about the long game. They're betting you'll spend enough later to make up for that initial discount. But what happens when people, like, figure out the trick and start avoiding those traps?
That's the risk. Transparency and trust are really important. If customers feel like you're tricking them, it can backfire big time. And it could hurt your brand in the long run.
It's fascinating, though, how each pricing method has its own like pros and cons, this whole balance between risk and reward.
Hmm.
So how does a company actually decide which approach is the right one?
There isn't a one-size-fits-all answer, unfortunately. It really depends on a bunch of things, both internal and external factors.
Okay, let's break that down. What kind of internal factors are we talking about?
Well, the first thing a company has to consider is its costs, right? Can they actually afford to sell at a low price, like with penetration pricing? Or do they need to make sure they're recouping their costs quickly, maybe by using skimming? Then there's the product's life cycle.
Oh.
Is it brand new, super innovative, something that people are willing to pay a lot for? Or is it a more mature product, maybe getting close to the end of its run? In that case, they might need a more competitive pricing strategy. And of course, the company's overall goals matter a lot. Are they focused on growing really fast and grabbing market share? Or are they more about making a profit and having a sustainable long-term strategy?
Makes total sense. So a luxury car brand, like say Mercedes-Benz, they're going to have a totally different approach to pricing than, I don't know, McDonald's car.
Exactly. And that's where those external factors come in. What kind of market are you in? Is it a niche market where you can charge higher prices? Maybe because your product is exclusive or it has some special features. How much competition is there? Are you going head to head with your rivals on price? Or are you trying to stand out by offering something unique and valuable?
And probably the most important external factor is, well, how much are people actually willing to pay?
Yeah.
That whole perceived value thing seems super important. Like Apple, they've somehow convinced everyone that their products are worth way more,
Yeah.
even if, sometimes the specs aren't that much better than the competition.
You hit the nail on the head. Perceived value is everything when it comes to pricing. It's not just about the features of the product itself, it's about the whole experience the brand creates, the emotions they evoke, the story they tell, the associations they build in people's minds.
Whoa, this is giving me a whole new perspective on pricing. It's not just a number, it's like a language that companies use to communicate with us. They're influencing how we see things and ultimately how we make decisions.
That's a great way to put it. Price is definitely a language. And the more fluent you become in that language, the better you'll be at navigating the market. You can make informed choices and even find hidden value that you might have missed before.
This is mind-blowing. Like, I'm suddenly seeing price tags everywhere, and they're all whispering secrets. Okay, I need a minute to process all of this.
Yeah.
But this is just the beginning, right? We've only just scratched the surface of this whole pricing world.
Oh, we've got so much more to explore. In our next session, we'll dive even deeper into the psychology of pricing. We'll uncover more strategic tactics and really start to understand how companies use price to influence our behavior and how we see things. Get ready for some serious aha moments.
Can't wait. We'll be back soon for part 2 of this price deep dive. We'll keep unpacking all the secrets of this powerful marketing lever. Stay tuned.
It's really interesting how much psychology plays into pricing. Like, it's not just about the numbers and the costs. It's really about understanding how people perceive value, how they make decisions, even how they justify what they spend money on.
It's kind of like those optical illusions, where you look at the same image, but it can look totally different depending on how you see it. I'm realizing that pricing is a bit like that. It's this subtle art of perception and influence. Speaking of different ways to approach pricing, I saw something in the research called competitive pricing. What's that all about? Seems pretty straightforward, right? Just watch what your competitors are doing and match their prices.
Yeah, it's definitely a common approach, especially in industries where price is like the main thing that influences what people buy. But, even though it might seem simple, competitive pricing can be a bit tricky.
Really? How so? Isn't it just about staying competitive, making sure you're not losing customers to those cheaper options?
Well, yeah, that's the main idea. But if you focus too much on what your competitors are doing, it can lead to this race to the bottom where everyone's constantly trying to undercut each other on price.
Oh, I see what you mean. So then profit margins shrink.
Hmm.
And it becomes really hard to invest in making your product better or even just stand out
Yeah.
based on quality or, offering something unique.
Exactly.
So you're stuck in this price war and ultimately everyone loses.
Pretty much. And it can create a market where consumers only care about price. And that can actually devalue the whole category,
Yeah, it's like that saying, you get what you pay for. If everyone's just trying to be the cheapest,
Yeah.
it kind of sends the message that maybe the whole category isn't worth that much to begin with.
Right. Exactly. That's why it's so important for companies to differentiate themselves beyond price, building a strong brand, focusing on customer experience, offering something unique and valuable. That's how you break free from that competitive pricing trap.
Okay, I'm getting it. Then there's this other method called cost-plus pricing. That one seems almost too basic. You just figure out your costs, add a bit extra for profit, and there's your price. But I'm guessing it's not really that simple, is it?
You're right, there's more to it. Cost plus pricing, it might seem like the most logical way to do it. But it does have some limitations and make sure you're covering your costs and making a profit on each thing you sell. But it doesn't really consider those external factors we talked about, like what's the demand for the product, what are your competitors charging, and most importantly, how much do customers actually value your product?
So you could end up charging too much if your costs are high, even if people aren't willing to pay that price.
Exactly. Or the opposite could happen. Your costs might be low, but customers might actually see your product as more valuable, so you end up undercharging. In today's market, people have access to so much information, and consumers are more savvy than ever. So you really have to consider all those external factors
Yeah.
and price your product strategically to maximize profit and make sure people see the value in what you're offering.
This is making me think about all those times I felt like I totally got ripped off. Like that $10 airport coffee that tasted awful.
Yeah.
Or that trendy restaurant where I paid $20 for a tiny salad.
Huh. We've all been there. And, it highlights a key point. It's not just about the actual price. It's about the value that price represents to the customer. When the price matches the value, it feels like a fair deal. But when it doesn't, when you feel like you paid way too much for what you got, it can leave you feeling kind of resentful. And it can even damage your trust in that brand.
Yeah, that's so true. Sometimes it's not even about the price itself. It's about how they present it or how they frame it. Like, wouldn't you be more likely to buy a t-shirt that's $19.99 than one that's $20,
Right.
even though it's basically the same price?
Absolutely. That's called psychological pricing. Companies use little tricks like charm pricing, where they end the price in a 9, or anchoring, where they show you a higher price first to make the actual price seem better.
Yeah.
And then there's framing, where they position their price next to a competitor's price or make it look like a big discount. All these things can subtly influence how we see the value of something and affect whether we buy it or not.
It's like they're hacking our brains. But, I mean, isn't it also up to us as consumers to be aware of these tactics? Like, now that I know about charm pricing, I'm not going to fall for it.
Well, it's not always about resisting those tactics completely. They can be useful for businesses, and they can even benefit consumers sometimes, like by making products seem more affordable. The key is to be aware of them, to understand how they work, and then make your own decisions based on what you need and what you can afford. It's about becoming a more informed and empowered consumer.
So knowledge is power when it comes to pricing. The more we understand how companies use price to influence us, the better equipped we are to make smart choices, choices that align with our values and our budget. This is like a crash course in consumer psychology.
In a way, it is. And it really shows how pricing isn't just some math problem. It's a deeply human interaction. It's about understanding how people think, feel, and make decisions, and then creating pricing strategies that work with those psychological processes.
This is making me think about that whole you get what you pay for idea again. But now I'm realizing it's not always that simple. Sometimes we're paying for more than just the product. We're paying for the emotions it evokes, the status it might give us, the story it tells. It's really about the whole experience the brand creates and how that aligns with our own values and aspirations.
That's a great point. It gets to the heart of what makes pricing so fascinating. It's this intersection of economics, psychology, and even a bit of storytelling. And the more we understand how all those things work together, the more we can appreciate the power of price, both as consumers and as those who shape the marketplace.
Major aha
Yeah.
moment happening over here. It's like I'm seeing the world through new eyes. Price tags aren't just numbers anymore. They're these complex signals that reveal so much about meaning and influence. Okay, I need a second to let all of this sink in, but I'm excited to keep exploring this pricing psychology stuff. What else we got for us in our next session?
In our final part, we'll bring everything together. We'll connect these psychological insights to actual strategies that companies use. We'll see how companies leverage pricing to achieve their goals, but also how they create value for their customers. It'll be a great look at how pricing can be a win-win for both sides.
Sounds like the perfect way to wrap up our pricing journey. Can't wait to unlock even more secrets and insights. Stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive into price, where we'll continue to unravel the psychology of this powerful marketing tool. And we're back, wrapping up our deep dive into price. This has been, wow, really eye-opening. It's like I've cracked the code of how pricing works,
I'm glad to hear that. It is kind of surprising how much we just accept prices without really thinking about them.
Yeah.
But price really is this powerful force that shapes so many of our decisions.
Okay, so we've talked about a bunch of stuff, different pricing methods, what factors influence price, all that psychology behind how we see value. But let's bring it back to our listener, the one who's been following along with us. Why does all this matter? Why is understanding price so important?
That's the big question, right? And it gets to the core of why we're even having this conversation. Understanding price empowers you. It gives you this framework for making smarter decisions when you're buying stuff. You can navigate the marketplace with more confidence, more awareness.
So it's like, instead of feeling tricked by marketing or pressured by all those little psychological nudges, we can actually understand what's going on and make choices that are good for us, choices that fit our values and our budget. It's like having a superpower.
Exactly. And it's not just about being a smart shopper. Understanding price can be super helpful if you're ever trying to sell something. Whether you're starting a business, working in marketing, or even just have a great idea you want to share with the world.
Because if you can figure out this whole pricing thing, you can attract customers, make money, and build a business that really provides value to people.
That's it. It's all about finding that balance.
Meeting your financial goals, but also making sure your prices feel fair to your customers.
Yeah.
One thing that's stuck with me throughout this whole deep dive is this idea of price versus value. How do you keep those two things in sync? How do you make sure you're charging the right amount, that your price really reflects the value you're offering?
That's the question everyone wants to know the answer to, right?
Yeah.
And it's tough. There's no magic formula. But one of the most important things is to really understand your customer. What problems are you solving for them? What benefits are they looking for? What are their pain points? What do they want to achieve? Once you have a good grasp on their perceived value, what they're actually willing to pay, then you can start building a pricing strategy that makes sense for everyone.
So it's not just about the features of the product itself. It's about the whole experience you're creating. The emotions, the connections, the story you're telling.
You got it. Think about those brands that have like a cult following. They're not just selling a product, they're selling a lifestyle, a feeling of belonging. And their pricing reflects that. They're not afraid to charge more because their customers believe in what they're offering.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I have this new awareness of how pricing works and how it affects me, even when I don't realize it.
That's great. And remember, this is just the beginning of your pricing journey. The more you pay attention to prices in your everyday life, the more you'll start to see those patterns, the psychology, the strategy behind it all. It's a fascinating world to explore.
I'm definitely feeling more confident and informed as a consumer now. And who knows, maybe someday I'll use all this to start my own business and create my own pricing strategy.
I bet you will. And remember, pricing isn't static, it's always changing. It's about experimenting, analyzing, and adapting. The more you learn, the more you realize there's always something new to discover.
Well said. Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this incredible deep dive into the world of price. A huge thanks to Google Notebook LM for the audio and AI assistance that makes this possible.
And to you, our amazing listener, for joining us on this journey. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and a new appreciation for the power of price.
This has been a PLC Strategy production. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep unlocking the secrets of the marketplace.